I'm recording. Hey, John.
Good morning.
Well, Kyle just sent me a message, so I'm pretty sure he's hopping on. I would think we got another 7 or 8 guys, or even girls, coming on. So we're still a minute or two early. So forecast is going down a little bit next week in Dallas, pretty much 60s. 80 tomorrow, though. That's always a nice. Yeah.
It was 32 here this morning.
Oh, where are you at?
Mike, where are you at?
I'm in my van. I'm heading to the job where I can kind of hang out and participate.
What city are you in? What city again?
I'm outside of Reading, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll be up in Philadelphia tomorrow.
Yeah, who you there for?
A company called the Chimney Scientist.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, Taylor.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Morning, Taylor.
Good.
Alan? I've got painters here coming through here, so I'm gonna be on mute and just off video, but I'll be here listening. So just wanting to let you guys know, we got a lot of activity here today.
Okay. Put the link in there too, right, Mel?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Madeline, where are you all?
I'm in outside of Dallas and Denton, Texas.
Okay.
She's my daughter. She works for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so does, as you see, John, management team.
So I was back there visiting my dad recently. He's in Richland Hills.
Oh, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in
Yeah.
Hearst. Yeah.
That's
I grew
not
up
far
there
from
in
me.
Hearst. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Next time I come down there, I'll holler at you and come see you.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give everybody one more minute. I kind of felt we'd have more people here, but maybe they'll be popping in. You know, it's a weird time for us. So, but we got Alan and it's being recorded. So they'll all watch the recording of anything else. Let's see here. Hey, Tom, are you at home or are you at the office?
I'm home right now.
All right. Hey, let's start. Just
Cool.
go ahead, Alan. It's being recorded. They'll all watch the recording.
Yeah, so I didn't have anything completely formal to cover with you guys. Chad said let's focus on rebuttals and just really top whatever we want to call them, objections that our guys get in the field every day. And so it's funny that Taylor's on here. I just did a project for the CSIA, and we went through a similar type of thing. Like, what are the situations that our guys go into every single day? And we know what the customer's already going to say, right? They're going to say one of 10 to 15 things. And how well prepared are our guys or gals in the field for what to say when they're put into those situations? And so I actually did a weekly video on this not long ago, and I call these lambs because we grow up with nursery rhymes. We grow up, if someone says Mary had a little, there's absolutely no other word on the planet that comes to your mind than lamb, right? So why does that happen? Why are we programmed to not say dog or cat? We always say lamb. And when it comes to sales, it should be the exact same way, right? I mean, it comes when we sit down and present to a customer, there is only one of 15 things that customer is going to say. And we should absolutely be programmed to know exactly what we're going to respond with to move that conversation forward. And if we ever get stuck if we ever get stuck by something a customer says, it's okay, but we should be writing that down and we should be saying, man, why did I get stuck there? What happened? Why did I get that objection to even begin with? Is there anything that I could have done earlier in that call or that sales process to, one, not have ever got that comment from the customer, but two, once I get it, how do I get past it? And so when we start defining what an objection is, I think people are confused. To me, or to most people, an objection is a barrier, a stop. Like this, I'm not moving forward because. And I always look at it as an objection. It's just simply a question as to why they're not saying yes yet. And so when you look at it that way, it just means all I have to do is answer that question to get them to yes. And so that's where this kind of pre-programming comes in. And so what I thought we could do is I'm going to actually, can I share my screen?
Yep,
Chad?
possible.
Let's see. I'm going to pull up and I'd love your all's feedback on this. If you guys can see my screen here. This is what I train around. This is what I consider to be the top 15 customer comments, objections, or barriers that our technicians deal with on a daily basis. And I'll give you a minute to kind of read through them. And I'll kind of do a quick summary. I just want to see if you have anything that you would add to this list. And then I think we just kind of, I'm happy to go through what some of my language is on this and how I continue that conversation. But again, I want to be absolutely clear that overcoming an objection does not mean that we got the sell, right? It does not necessarily mean that we won the deal. It just means that we remove that barrier and we continue the conversation. So when a customer's, we present everything and the customer says, okay, great, Alan, you did a great job. Thanks for explaining that to me. Can you send a copy of that to my email, right? Something just very simple that we hear every day. Do we allow that to end the conversation? Or do we have language that allows us to keep talking to the customer to get closer to yes? So that's kind of the purpose of this LAM exercise, is that when a customer says something like, can you send a copy of this to my email? Do you have a pre-programmed in your brain response that is going to continue, not allow that to shut down the call and you leave, but allow you to continue talking to the customer to get closer to yes? So I don't know if everybody, I want this to be fairly interactive if possible, but if you can read the top 15 here, is there anything that's not on that list that you guys feel that your team has to deal with on a daily basis? No, pretty good. Everybody kind of agree that if we, so the concept from a management standpoint is, if your guys get one of these 15 things, are they prepared to respond to it? And you can do this in your morning meetings. You can do this in your sales meetings, whatever you have. I have companies that I work with on an ongoing basis. There's almost a culture of randomly giving an employee an objection, just walking down the hall and be like, man, that sure is a lot of money. And they're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, the point is, are you on your toes to know exactly what you would say when a customer or someone says that? And if not, you need to practice your language. And the key here is, again, just removing the objection. So Chad, we can do this however you want. We can role play it. I can just give you some of my language that I would use in these situations, or we can kind of go through it. I'm going to actually do some weekly videos on all of these in detail, but I'm happy to kind of go through the top ones and what people feel like their technicians are dealing with in the field.
No, I think Monday morning we'd like to listen to you.
All right. Yeah. Very good. So does anybody have one in here that just stands out that they hear their guys saying all the time that they're dealing with?
Well, I mean, the first one's golden, and then obviously the let's talk to your wife is the two that pop me, right? I got to talk to my spouse.
For sure. So I spend a lot, I could do a whole hour on just price objections, right? And I think that it's important to know that if you get a price objection, more than likely you've not followed the sales process quite the way that it should have been followed. You know, and we could spend, again, days talking about how do you build value in the home, but once you get the price objection, it's almost too late. You are now in defense mode. You have to justify why your price is what it is. And most likely when you get price objections, it's because you were a technician that was slinging chimney products that the customer didn't want to buy. And so one of my most popular classes is the tech versus the consultant. And so I want you to really just be honest with yourself and ask, you know, when your technicians go into the home, are they a technician or are they a consultant? You know, a technician goes in and says, you know, I'm here to take a look at your fireplace, your stove, your chimney. I'm going to run through a very thorough evaluation. I'm going to do a high level inspection. I'm going to take lots of photos. If there's any problems at all, I'm going to document those for you. I also fix these types of problems. So if there's any problem at all, I'll be able to put together a proposal for you, right? If you go through that process as a technician, you're almost always going to get price or need objections. Almost always, because you're diagnosing a chimney or a fireplace that the customer may or may not care about, or that they have the perception that there's no problems with, right? They just used it 2 days ago. It's been fine for 30 years, whatever, you know, their response to that may be. So the technician who is saying, here's what's wrong, here's what you need to do, is the technician that is most likely going to get price objections, or wow, that's a lot of money, or wow, I wasn't expecting that. But when we go in as a consultant and we go in and we just simply ask the customer what brings us out today, no one just picks up the phone and calls a chimney sweep, right? There is a particular reason that you've asked me to come into your home. It could be as simple as just sweeping your fireplace, or it could be a known issue. But whenever we make the conversation all about what the customer wants, and then our process is simply designed to help them achieve that goal, then it really takes the money out of it. It just becomes a level of how important is that thing to the customer. And then, does that make sense? Sorry, I heard. So when I will give you one of the biggest tips, and I haven't done a video on this yet, but one of the biggest tips for creating value and reducing price objections. And that's what I call simplifying the solution and amplifying the complexity of the solution. And this is so important to reducing price objections. And so the simplifying the solution is the idea that we're experts at this, right? We do this type of thing every day. We find gaps in a fireplace every day. We do liners every day. We do chimney repairs every day. We do all this stuff every day. We're experts at it. We're great at it. You called the right company. Amplifying the complexity of the solution is taking the fact that a customer is not oversimplifying the repair in their head, right? In their head, if relining a chimney, oh yeah, that's just that thing where you drop the big metal tube down there. Yeah. That, you know, I'm familiar with that. Well, if that's the mindset of the customer, is just dropping a big metal tube down the chimney, I mean, how much can that possibly cost, right? And so when you go and tell them it's $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, of course they're going to have a reaction to that. So when we say amplify the complexity, you should have a series of photos for every single job that you do. So if, for example, a reline, you should have an album on your iPad with like 15 photos showing every single step of what a reline looks like. It could be as simple as a guy on the roof in scaffolding and a harness on a lift. It could show the fireplace taped up. It could show a guy with a drill knocking out tiles. It could show a picture of, you know, all the tiles in the firebox. Literally guys carrying out buckets of tile. Show a guy removing the damper. A guy's feet in the firebox, right? You know, parging the smoke chamber. One guy bringing the big liner in. Another guy pulling it in. You know, parging. The whole idea is, when you go through and very quickly, right? Like it's a 1 to 2 minute type of deal where you say, here's what this project looks like. Here's all that has to happen. We're going to remove your damper. We're putting in a top mount damper. We've got a chain going all the way down your fireplace. We've got it tied in here. I'm putting a cap up here. I've got a top plate. I've got By the time you get done amplifying the complexity of it, two things happen. One, in their mind, they're going, holy crap, I had no idea it was this much work. And the next thing in their mind is, oh my gosh, how much is this going to cost me? Which is exactly what we want them to do, right? We want them to realize that, holy cow, not anybody can do this work. You know, whenever they talk about, let me get some other opinions or let me shop you or whatever the case is, when you show them how complex this work is and how you have experience at doing that, and when you're talking about building a live fire in the middle of your home, you really only want an expert doing this type of job. This helps amplify the complexity of that. So by the time you get through your slideshow, and it can be as simple as a crown seal, right? You have 4 or 5 pictures of a crown seal. If they have the idea that, oh yeah, that's just that white stuff that you paint on top of the chimney, if you go and tell them it's now $600, they are going to have a price reaction. But if you go in and show them a series of 4 or 5 pictures of how I am smoothing this out, I'm taping this off, I have to wet it, I'm doing multiple coats, I'm making clean lines, I'm scraping it to make sure that this product stays in. You go through and show them all those things, and I'm standing behind this, that there's no points of water intrusion from the top for the next 10 years. Okay, now how much does that cost me? Totally different. You can't just go through and say, you know, you've got some cracks at the top of your chimney, we're going to seal that with a crown seal, or you 100% will start getting price objections. So the key to sum this whole thing up is that if you get someone telling you that it's too expensive or that it's more than they thought, I can almost always assure you that you did not build enough value in the complexity of amplifying how much work this actually is. I always say that people don't have to like my price, they just have to understand why it is what it is. If you can't afford it, if we've got a budget issue, if we've got other things that we need to do, I've got programs in place to help you with that. But I don't want a customer to ever tell me I'm charging more than it's worth, because that means they don't understand the scope of the work. Does that make sense?
That was awesome.
Questions on any of that? And so I will tell you, to get to the lamb thing, when someone challenges me on that, because I rarely get price objections these days. In fact, if you go out in the field with me, you'll realize that a lot of times we get reverse price objections. It sounds crazy, but we'll be like, oh my God, dude, $10,000, the way you were talking, I thought this was going to be 15 grand, right? Which is what you want, right? You want them to realize that you're bringing value to the table. But when let's say I do give an $8,000 proposal and someone's like, man, 8,000, gosh, that's a lot of money. My standard land to that is, yeah, it's a big project. You know, what were you thinking a project of this scope would come in at? I turn the question back to them, because there's only 2 possible answers they can give me. One is they are going to give me a number that they've done some sort of research on. They're going to compare me against an apples oranges internet quote. They're going to possibly compare me against a competitor that's already been out there. And if so, then I can dive in and say, are we talking the same scope of work? But most of the time, I'm getting them to realize that they have no idea. They pulled this number out of the thin air. You know, it's literally, they have no idea what this type of work costs. And so if you've heard some of my Surefire stuff, I always use the example of, because I'm a huge Tennessee Titans fan, season ticket holder, go Titans, 8-2, baby. We're looking good. Derrick Henry hurt, that sucks, but whatever. So, so we've got, when I go to a Tennessee Titans game, how much do I pay for a beer?
$8.
$8. I wish.
Whatever they charge them.
Whatever they're charging. That's right.
True.
It's about $18 for a tall boy, right? You get, so $18. But what's crazy, Chad, is why did you say $8 for a beer?
Well, I haven't been to a game in forever, so that's probably what it cost when I last went.
But how, if you went to the grocery store, how much would you say a beer cost?
$2.
$2. So why did you immediately, without, even though you were low, why did you immediately say 4 times what a beer costs?
Well, you know that they price gouge you and go big on the price.
You have somehow been conditioned to know that when I am in this environment, I am going to spend more than I would normally spend in another environment, right? Whereas
Right.
if you went to the grocery store and they had, $8 a beer and they're like, it's $48 for a 6-pack, you tell them to fly a kite. But you get $8 at a Titans game or your local football game. You're like, man, what a great deal. I was expecting 10, 15, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same product. It's all about the expectations that the customer has or the conditioning that they've been given. And so we have a very short window of an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on your company, that we're in there with that customer doing an inspection and evaluation to somehow condition them to expect our products cost a certain amount. And the only way we increase the value of that is through our expertise, through our complexity, through our showing them photos, to letting them know that this is not about slinging chimney products. Guys, I use this joke all the time. There is, outside of maybe a stove, there is not a person on the planet that is on your calendar today that has woke up this morning saying, man, I hope Chad brought some of that Crown Seal today. Looking forward to buying that, right? There's not a person one that wants what you're selling, but what they want is to resolve whatever issues that they have. And the problem is most of the time they don't know that they have the issues yet. So you've got this really short window to explain all the issues they have, what they mean to the customer, how they tie into what that customer told you they hired you for and why they brought you out today. And that by doing this service or this product, it then resolves that issue that they have. Cool.
Cool.
Questions?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah. Hey, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, so I got a little bit different problem. Maybe you'll address this later, but a lot of times I have customers that price is not the objection. They're going to do whatever it takes, spend whatever money it takes. Upselling is a lot of times my problem. Is how do I take them to the next level of product or design or detail?
So can you give me an example of what an upsell would be in your world or your mind, like a specific example of something you would have trouble trying to get a customer to understand?
Couple things. Let's just focus on fireboxes, for instance.
Yeah.
A herringbone design would be an upcharge.
Sure.
Soapstone fire brick would be an upcharge. Just design elements. The pricing can really start to rise quite a bit. Depending on what kind of work's going to be done, and you can really add some profit to the job that way.
Sure. So I always look at it as, first of all, what is the problem the customer has, and am I solving the problem? All my range of Band-Aids to platinum, like for example, a cap, am I doing from a bare minimum single flue cap to a hip and ridge copper outside mount cap, right? That's my range of things that I can do for this customer. So my range is going to be based upon what that customer's answers are to my discovery question. So typically the most popular one is how long do they plan on being in the home, right? So depending on their tenure in the home, all of a sudden my lifetime type products or my more valuable or higher end products tend to make a lot more sense because it's a one and done investment that I can put whatever lifetime warranty behind. And if we're going to put this kind of money into our system, let's only do it once and never have to deal with this again, right? If they're planning on leaving in a year or two, then I could have the exact same product, but they don't care about that because they're not going to be able to enjoy that. So at that point, my conversation shifts to, when you go to sell this home, let's get max value out of the system. Let's get max value of something with a transferable warranty. So not only can you sell this as a functioning fireplace or a system, you can sell this as something that has a warranty that can be transferred to your new buyer. And that adds a ton of value. When it comes to cosmetic choices like firebox, fire brick, herringbone, I tend to let the pitchers do that selling for me. I'll say, so I have this kind of rule where I say, discuss options, don't propose them. You know, I never want to put my customer in that position of being the expert to make the right decision for what the right repair is for them, right? I want them to perceive me as the expert. I ask a series of questions, and then based on their answers to those questions, I will tell them, in my opinion or in my expertise, this is what we need to do and why. But there are times where I want the customer's feedback as to, you know, if we can go about this 2 or 3 different ways, let's talk about what would be best for you or what you think would be best for you. And that's, in a case like that, I would show them a picture of 3 fireboxes. Say, this is our most popular firebox. This is our high-end firebox stuff at the lifetime warranty on. This is our herringbone. This is whatever. And then I would say, this is our standard firebox, and then this is our basically bare bones band-aid, tuck pointing, or whatever the case may be, that gets the problem solved, but is just basically a temporary stop along the way. Based on these 3 options, which one's most appealing to you? And then I put them into, they're going to ask you right then, well, what's the difference in price? Well, I'm going to work that up. At the end, it's all based on measurements. It's based on that. But if, let's just say, money was no object, this is the one that you would prefer, right? And they would say yes. And then I come in, and then I hopefully, through that series of pictures, right, I show them, demoing the firebox. I show them laying brick by brick in this beautiful pattern and the mortar match and all this type of stuff. And by the time I get to the proposal and they get the price, then we'll see what their reaction is to that. And I can always go backwards, but it's very difficult to go forward. So, so in those situations, if they told me they like the herringbone or they like the higher end the best, I'm always going to just propose that, knowing that I have a step down if I need to. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, but that's typically the process that I go through in that, is I get them to tell me what they would want before I get to the proposal. That way their mind is churning and they're expecting this to come to the table. I think I literally just did a video on this, that I think a lot of technicians make a mistake because they hold all this information close to the vest and they wait till the end and they puke all over their customers with their findings and say, here's everything that I found. And the customer's like, what are you talking about, man? I just used this thing 2 days ago. What are you talking about? I've got, all these problems. And then, oh, wait, it gets better. Not only do you have all these problems, and in order to use your system, you now have to spend $7,000. And they're like, get out of here, man, get out of my house. Right. So, but when you break it down into those bite-sized chunks of, hey, I thought everything was fine, but now I'm being exposed to some of these issues. We can go about resolving some of these issues in multiple ways. Let's talk about what that looks like for you and what you would like. Then the proposal becomes an expectation, right? They're no longer expecting to end that day with a $250 sweep. They're now expecting multiple proposals from you, or multiple items or problems that they have. And they've kind of broken down that idea that their system's in good condition already. So.
Love it. Anything else, Mike?
No, I mean, you hit on some good stuff. It's, I don't know if I explain it really well. I mean, to give you an idea, like some of my customers that I go for, like, for instance, I just had a customer pay me an extra $5,000 for picking their schedule time.
Sure.
So stuff like that. So I'm looking at selling them a better product, not necessarily fixing the issue. Fixing the fireplace is a foregone conclusion.
Yep.
It's the stuff that they don't need that I'm trying to sell.
So I don't know if you guys have heard of a guy named Brian Barnhill, but he is he's got a chimney sweep company in Lexington, Kentucky. He's also got a good supply division as well. And he pretty much was one of the first guys over 10 years ago that pioneered the what I call the menu, right? And Mike Fazey has kind of taken some of that concept and he has turned it into some training materials for objection handling and things. But what Brian has done is he has basically created these huge menus that are laminated. He takes them into the customer's home and he says, here are all of these solve your problem, right? Here are the three options that you have based on your cosmetic choice or based on your style or your budget or whatever the case may be. And he would go in and he would show them, for example, a cap. He would show them a flat lid stainless steel cap, and then he would show them a powder coated galvanized cap with a hip and ridge lid. Then he would show them a copper outside mount cap with the standing seam hip and ridge. And they would say, this one's 1,500, this one's 2,500, this one's 4,000, which one? And he would literally have the pictures, the descriptions, and the price all on the menu. And he would put it in front of the customer. And he'd say, which one of these do you like best? And then that way they're seeing the upgrade options and the cost correlated with them. That works very well for him. It's not personally the style that I teach. I teach more of a let's solve your problem type of, not really selling type of a system. But it sounds like you're in a luxury market where you like that. That's a fantastic problem to have whenever it's like, I know that you're going to do the work. It's just what level.
Actually, I'm not in a luxury market. I'm in a very, not economically depressed, but I don't have a lot of those premium customers to choose from. So, I try to make the most of them when I do get them.
Sure. No, that's fair. But that is he's got menus for like his top 10 things, right? He's got menus for, fireboxes. He's got menus for caps. He's got menus for, even heat shield versus liners. He's got, if you're selling inserts, these are the 3 levels of medium. These are the 3 levels of wood stoves that you can do. Like if you want, this one gets you all the way to the 26% EPA credit. But if you just want to bypass the damage and have a working wood stove that'll create heat value for you, this is where people start. But if you're looking for something that's going to, really give you some more cosmetic options, some layers to it, and whatever, then you can go here and you let that customer make that choice versus you making the choice. I personally just choose to go to the table with what I believe is the right solution for them versus putting them in that. But in those situations where you have upsell opportunities, I think the menus could be great.
Cool.
All right. I mean, I want to jump in here on the, I want to really hear, because I never really had a great rebuttal or a great objection or a lamb for this one is they want to talk to the spouse thing.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. I'd love to hear Alan's take.
So it's obviously one of the toughest ones, and it is most of the time an extremely legitimate objection. I think that's the key. We have to determine, but at the same time, it can be a blow off. It can be the customers, you give them the price, they've already decided there's no way in hell I'm doing that. Right. And they're trying to quote, be nice, right? Okay, Alan, well, thanks, man. Let me talk to my wife. We'll get back to you. And they have no intention of ever calling you back, right? That's their blow off. And so you got to kind of determine that. So before I give you my response to this, I want to make sure everybody's mindset is proper for this response, because if you've not set your call up properly, the language that I'm going to give you is going to come across salesy as hell. I teach. So if you're writing things down, or this is being recorded. So the definition that I use for sales is by a guy named Anthony Iarino. He wrote a book called The Lost Art of Closing. And in that book, he says that sales is simply a conversation. That's all it is. It's a conversation that takes a customer from their current state to their desired future state, and then how I'm going to help them achieve that desired future state, right? So if you truly think of our call as that, right? Now, again, get out of technician mindset that I'm going in there to find all the problems with the fireplace and the chimney and give the customer a report. I am going in there to find out, what does my customer want? How can I help them get it, right? If that is my mindset, like here's their desired future state, I am the guy, I'm an expert. They've called me to come help them achieve this perfect state, right? So if my mindset is there, then I absolutely should have I don't even know if audacity is the right word, but the confidence and the permission to make sure that they fully understand their situation. And so by the time that I sit down with a customer, they already know all the problems that they have. We're now sitting down, we're reviewing 15, 20 photos. We're going through everything. We're explaining what I call the big three. This is the problem. Here's what happened to this thing. Here's what happens if we don't resolve this. And based on what you told me you wanted, this is a barrier for all these things, right? And then I'm going through the solution and I'm going through, how we take care of this for them. I'm amplifying the complexity, get down to the proposal, give them the number. And then they say, Alan, I totally get it, man. This makes a ton of sense. Obviously I'm going to speak with my wife on this. We don't make any decisions without talking to each other. So let me get with her and, we'll get back with you in a day or two, right? Pretty standard type of response. And so the number one rule for objection handling is every single response that you give always starts with an empathetic statement. You always want the customer to know that you understand that what they are saying to you makes complete sense. You never want to go in defense mode. You never want to go into, oh my gosh, like, why would you say that mode? It's just always an empathetic statement. And so in a case like this, I would say, Chad, man, I get it, dude. I've been married for almost 25 years. I would absolutely get shot at my house if I made a $10,000 decision without talking to my wife. All right, so totally on the same page there. Now, I will tell you this, Chad, I've been doing this long enough to know that I just went over 20 minutes worth of photos and explanations and recommendations with you, that by the time your wife gets home, 90% of that's going to be out of your brain. While I'm here and while everything is fresh, I'm happy to go over the same information with your wife. We can either do it on the phone or I can do it on a video call, show her some of these photos, so that when she gets home, you guys are on the same page and you guys can have a better, more solid conversation. That's my absolute lamb to that. So the keys, there's 2 or 3 keys to this. If they think that you're calling the wife or the husband because you want to close the deal or you want to try to sell them, you'll never get them on the phone. Don't even try it. Like, it's just not even worth it. That the other key to that is to let them put them in that mindset that you're right. I do have to try to explain this to my wife or my husband, and I don't fully understand all of this. And yes, again, why are we there? We're there to help them achieve that desired future state. If you wouldn't, it's amazing how many people are thankful for that. Oh my gosh, really? Do you have the time to do that? Would you do that? Please. Yes, that would be great, Alan. And again, the key is the language. So when he or she gets home, you guys are on the same page and can have a better conversation, right? Again, if it's, hey, I need to talk to my wife. Well, hey, do you want to get her on the phone? We can talk now. No, that's salesy as hell, right? It has to be, well, let me talk to my wife. Totally get it, dude. Been married a long time. I'd be talking to my wife too. Like, I get it. It's a lot of information. I went over a lot of photos. I went over a lot of information. While I am here and while everything is fresh, I'm more than happy to kind of review with her what I just went over with you, so that whenever she gets home, you guys are on the same page. You think she's available for a quick call or a video? Awesome. So it's going to work 30-40% of the time, right? The rest of the time it'll be like, man, I appreciate that, but yeah, she can't take calls at work, or no, she, I think I pretty much got it. I think I have a pretty good idea. I think I can cover it, but we'll call you with any questions. Totally fine, right? But if you get that 30 to 40% that you otherwise wouldn't have got, and you'll be surprised how many times when you get the spouse on the phone, you start a FaceTime, you start a Zoom, you start sharing some photos, all of a sudden they're like, yeah, it's got to be done. And you still close it on the phone. That's just not the intent of getting the spouse.
Right.
Make sense?
Yep. That's
And I will
my
tell
two
you,
bucket,
it's
that's
hard.
my 2 bucket list ones. Anyone else have one that they really want him to go over? Alan's only going to be with us 22 more minutes.
Just think about, so the 2 most common responses to a proposal. The number one is, can you send a copy to my email, right? Like, that's always, unless it's different in your market, pretty much any survey that I've done, you give the proposal and they say, okay, great, awesome, you're going to send that to my email, right? So the really key thing to remember is that, can you send a copy to my email is not an objection. An objection is a response. Can you send a copy to my email is a stalling technique that tells you absolutely nothing about what the customer's current mindset is, right? The only thing that you know is that customer is not saying yes or no right now. That's it. Outside of that, you have no idea where you stand in that sale. And so when a customer says, can you send a copy of this to my email? Again, empathetic statement always. Absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, we went over a lot of stuff. You're going to get a copy of all the photos. You're going to get a copy of my inspection report. You're going to get a copy of all my recommendations. All that's going to come right to your email. And then I follow up with a real simple question. And that is, so yeah, Chad, absolutely, man. Want to shoot that to your email. Right here's the email address, chad@masterservices.com. Is that right? Awesome. Yeah, man, you're going to get the photos. You're going to get the proposal. You're going to get the inspection report. You're going to get everything that we talked about today. While I'm sitting here and all this is fresh, what are we thinking so far? Right? They have to, when you proposition them and ask them a very direct question, what are you thinking so far? Almost every single time, they're going to give you one of these other 14 things. Right? And if you're prepared with your lambs for one of these other 14 things, you're good. You're continuing the conversation, right? Again, objection handling is not closing the sale, it's continuing the conversation. So if I say, Chad, man, hit me with it, man. Be honest with me. What are you thinking so far? Well, man, I'm thinking I'm a little in shock. I wasn't ready for all this. It's a little more than I was prepared for today. What is the problems more than you were prepared for today? The cost, like what's the big hiccup here? Well, man, all of that, I mean, I used my fireplace 2 days ago and now I see it. You showed it to me. I understand it. I'm just a little bit unprepared, Okay, great. Let's talk through that. What part, and this is a power continuing question, what part of this is giving you the most angst? What part of this is really sticking on you? What part's giving you, get them to talk through it, because one of two things, they're going to talk through this, right? And whether it's in their own head, with their spouse, with a friend, with the internet, they're going to talk through it and come to some sort of conclusion. If they're going to talk through it, I don't want them talking through it to anyone but me, because I'm the expert that's going to answer their questions, right? They called me because they want my expertise. And so if they try to process this on their own, a lot of times they will get invalid information, or they will come to the wrong conclusion because they don't have the right answers. And so that's one of my favorites, is when people say, can you send a copy to my email? It's just and I've been with enough technicians, and I talk about this in one of my classes. One of my biggest pet peeves is, so hey, Alan, can you, that sounds good. Send that to my email. And the guy's like, okay, yeah, is this your email address? I'll shoot it over. Okay, well, you have a good day. And it's like, Jesus, man, like we allowed the whole thing to stop because we didn't continue the conversation. And so, and it takes confidence, it takes repetition, it takes time, it takes all those things. But if you just if you've ever left a customer's home and you have no idea where that sale stands outside of your gut reaction that is based on nothing of, oh, I like my chances on that one, or, oh, I didn't feel too good about that one. That's not a data-driven metric, right? That is a gut check. But you should absolutely know when you leave there what that customer's thinking, what their biggest challenge is, what they need to process, so that when you make that follow-up call the next day, you have a pickup conversation. Chad, when I left, you were a little bit in shock, man. There's a lot of work that we weren't expecting. Obviously, it was a bigger investment than we were thinking it was going to be. You had the night to sleep on it. What new questions or thoughts do you have for me? Right? I'm picking up the conversation right where we left off in their home.
Hey, Alan.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just would like for you to talk about the power of silence when you ask a question.
Yeah.
So
there's an old saying that he or she who talks first loses, right?
Hold on, guys. Mike Ellis, can you mute your phone?
Mike, how are you?
Sure.
Thank you. All right.
So there's an old saying that he or she who talks first loses. And so after you have gone through your photos, your inspection report, your proposal, you said everything that you need to say to that customer. You then relinquish control of the iPad or your proposal to the customer and they're kind of looking at it and they're processing it. Absolutely, one of the biggest keys is silence. He or she who talks first loses. So Taylor's heard me say this before, that I've literally been in 5-minute staring contests with customers once the proposal's been given, because I do not want to break their concentration, their thought process, any questions that they may create, and anything that you would add to the anything that you could possibly say after you finish talking. Almost every time is going to be something salesy. It's going to be something irrelevant. It's going to be some sort of justification. It's going to be, oh, did I mention that has the lifetime warranty? It's going to be something that is not relevant to them making that decision. And so once you've given them the iPad, allow them to process at their rate. And literally, if you have to sit there for 5 minutes and until they go through it, you just sit there until because what are they going to say? Right? One of two things is going to happen. Either they are going to ask you a buying question, right? Well, how many days of work is this? What kind of deposit do you need? How far booked out are you? Or, there's some sort of buying question, or they're going to give you some sort of objection that you should have a lamb prepared for it, right? Well, all right, man. Well, if this is the case, I think I'm going to have to, make 1 or 2 more calls just to make sure we're getting the best possible value here. Right now, I've got a lamb that I'm fully prepared to talk to that customer about. But if you interrupt them and you start to talk before they have a chance to process it, you're going to miss either that buying question or that objection, and you're going to potentially lose a great opportunity. So that's a great question, Taylor.
So I have 2 that I see on here that I run into a lot.
Yep.
We have some other projects we need to take care of before we can do this. And do I have to do all this work?
Yeah.
Do I have to do all this?
So Kyle, let me ask you, does your company offer third-party financing?
No, we don't. We are trying to get into that.
Okay, so you really need that for that first one. So look at Interbank or Synchrony, or if you've got Service Titan, one of those, they have like multiple. But you really need to have a budget objection program. So if someone tells me, hey man, I get it, need to do it, but I just put on a roof, I'm getting ready to put in an HVAC unit, all my funds are tied up, I'm just going to probably have to wait a year before I can scrap the cash together to get this. But again, empathetic statement.
Especially in this market, all the houses have just been bought. They probably are going through their HVAC, kitchen, something along.
They waived all the inspections. They don't know what they're getting into. They're doing 10 different things. So the financing options that most companies offer are a 12-month same as cash or a 60-month low interest. And so I will pivot to those every single time. And I'll say, look, dude, I totally get it, man. I mean, buying a house, you got home ownership, you got 100 things you got to worry about. Our company actually recognizes that no one has a Chimney budget. I mean, I've been doing this for, almost 10 years and I haven't met a person yet that had a Chimney budget. So we can go about this 1 or 2 ways, because I'd hate for you to wait a year and then whatever the impact is, right? 1, not be able to use it during this winter. 2, if we got a bunch of exterior, I don't want this to go through another freeze cycle and have a bigger project down the road. So this is something I can go ahead and take care of for you now, but you can pay for 12 months from now with no interest, right? So that way you get all your other stuff done, no prepayment penalty. If you want to pay it off early, you want to wait on your taxes, whatever the case may be. That way we can not have a bigger project down the road. I've already had 9 price increases from my vendors this year. I have no idea what next year is going to look like. And I just don't want this to be a bigger scope for you at that point. And then, if it turns out that a year is not enough time, I've got a low interest program. I know that for every $5,000 that gets financed, it's about $97 or $98 a month. So if it's a $7,000 project, like I get it, man. Is there, you got $120 in your budget that we can put towards this, and then once you have the full funds for it, you can pay it off with with no prepayment penalty. So you really do need those. Without those, it's a tough objection to get to, other than giving them the impact and saying, look, I get it, man. There's a priorities list of things. Just know that in the history of chimneys, no chimney's ever gotten better on its own. They always get more expensive. And I just want to,
I already stole that one from you.
Yeah.
I already stole that. I teach all my techs to say that today's the cheapest it's ever going to be.
Yeah. And then, sorry, what was the other one that you said?
Do we have to do it all?
Oh yeah. So my answer to that's really, really simple. It's no. You don't have to do any of it. I mean, when they ask me like, man, do I need to do all this? My answer every single time is absolutely not, man. You don't have to do any of this. I'm not the chimney police. Let's talk about how we got to these recommendations. When I got here, you told me this is what we were looking to do. We found this. You said you wanted blah, blah, blah. This is how we get you that, right? So if we're talking about prioritizing, I always want to prioritize with the thing the customer never wants to prioritize. You want to spend money on the inside because you want to see it. You want to use your fireplace. You want to enjoy it. I want you to invest on the outside because I know that scope always gets bigger, right? Those repairs always get larger. I know that's not the sexy place to put your money, but if we're trying to avoid a bigger project down the road, we absolutely want to start on the outside. The last thing I would want to do is do repairs on the inside, do a heat shield, do a stove, do anything like that, and then allow water to potentially come in and either ruin that repair or facilitate an accelerated deterioration.
Okay. That's perfect.
Cool. Well, we got about 10 minutes if you guys want to hit through any, just open forum, any other Q&As, any other, happy to share whatever.
Does anybody have anything either in the lambs or outside of the lambs you want to ask him? I have a million questions. But this is for you guys. Go ahead. You got a question, hit him.
What about it's been fine for 30 years and we haven't had any problems?
Yeah, so that is, if you get that objection, you probably missed some opportunities earlier in the sales process. The way that I tend to get past that one is I always involve my customer in the scan. And so when I get to the scan and I bring them over, I don't know what in your market, but in most of the markets that I work, almost every single smoke chamber is unparged, right? It's raw brick in there. And so as soon as I get to, I should have brought my iPad in here, but I have the little heat shield diagram that I use with the customer that shows the firebox, the smoke chamber, and the flue. I'm about to do, what is it? Who's your guy? Chad, Cody? Firebox, smoke chamber.
Firebox, smoke chamber, flue.
That's it. So go through and do the chimney dance. But on the one side, it shows, the parged smoke chamber, the smooth transition. On the other side, it shows the core blade and the raw brick. And so anytime I look into the smoke chamber and it's unparged or I have raw brick core holes, I will then, even if I've already asked them this question, I'll ask them again. I'll say, Chad, remind me again when you said this house was built. 71. Okay, well, that makes perfect sense. So back in the 70s, this is the way they built things before they updated the codes and standards. And they realized that the smoke chamber is the hottest part of the fire and the #1 source of chimney fire. So most chimney fires are not even chimney fires, they're smoke chamber fires. And what they're realizing is that smoke and creosote is getting into these little core holes and these little areas that I can't sweep or access. And so once that smoke cools, it becomes creosote. The creosote is a carbon, which is a combustible. So any type of little spark or heat that would transfer into those gaps could cause an ignition outside of the system. So at that point, I've addressed codes and standards. I've addressed that, hey, when they built this, it was fine. So if we get to the end and they say, well, hey, man, it's been fine for 30 years. I can then go back and address, well, yeah, remember we talked about, the way they used to build them then. And then if they're still not convinced, then I go through and I'll educate them on the process of pyrolysis and how, over time, I don't know what combustibles are behind there. But the one thing I do know is their ignition temperature is constantly being lowered every time you use the system. And so, you're playing the lottery a little bit at this point.
Okay, before you go, you got to do this one because I know everybody gets this one no matter what on a daily. We're gonna get a few more quotes. Yeah. So again, you have to start with empathy, which is so hard. Whenever someone tells you they want to get more quotes, the first you're like a dog or a cat, man. The hairs on the back of your neck stand up. You get defensive. You're like, what are you talking about? Why? That's what you want to do, right? But you have to, dude, I get it. It's a big project. You were not expecting all this information. I assume the reason that you want to get
other opinions is to make sure that you're getting the best possible value for this repair. Is that fair? Right. And then you put it back to them. And then here's my spiel. I'm glad you're recording this. I mean, I will say this every single time. And then actually, if I can give a shameless plug, I did a Rush Profits weekly video on this. It's literally, I put this in step by step. I printed the language, and I give you the 5 steps of how to handle this specific objection. But the key is empathy. And then you go in and you let the customer know, depending on the area that you are in, that the chimney industry is one of the few industries that is completely unregulated and unlicensed, right? It is literally, if you wanted, Mr. Customer, if you wanted to go out and be a chimney sweep today and start making recommendations to your neighbors tomorrow, you could do that, right? There is absolutely nothing that is stopping you from doing that. The problem is there are a ton of codes and standards. We have our local jurisdiction, we have the IRC, we have the NFPA, we have all these types of things that you have to know, but there is no testing or regulation to make sure that you know it. So the one thing that I caution everyone that wants to get multiple opinions is certainly do that. Just know that we have everything from a guy in a truck that knows nothing about chimneys to completely volunteer certified companies that choose to have their guys trained and certified by national entities. So at a bare minimum, any company that you bring in, make sure that they have one of these certifications, right? Whatever is in your area, the fire, NFI, CSIA, CCP, whatever, right? So that's number one. Number two is one thing that I will assure you, Chad, is that no matter who you get to come out here, what I have shown you is not opinion, right? It's these are the facts of the deficiencies that you have. So no one's going to come in and tell you anything different, which is what a lot of people want. They're hoping someone else will come in and tell them it's not that bad, or that someone else will come in and tell them, well, hey, maybe you could do this, right? And I want to get that out of the way right away. So look, none of this is up for interpretation, right? This is code, standards, facts, pictures. This has to be done in order for you to use the system or not have this, continued deterioration, whatever the case is. So I get that completely out of the way, right? The next thing I do is I say, if you bring in a qualified, certified company, the other thing that I can 100% assure you, I may not be the cheapest guy. I mean, I'm sure somebody will do this cheaper, but I 100% assure you that my scope is going to be very similar. If someone comes in here and they're dramatically lower than what my price is, then either we're not talking about the same scope of work, or we're not talking about the same quality, the same material, same something. And then the last thing is, or I should say the next to the last thing is, so if you do bring someone in here and they present you with something dramatically different, just do me a favor and give me a call. You don't have to tell me their pricing. You don't have to tell me anything, but I just want to make sure that your problem is resolved, and it's resolved properly. When you're dealing with a live fire in your home, you want to make sure it's done properly. So if for some reason some magic unicorn comes in here and tells you that they can do all this work properly for a lot cheaper than I am, I'll be the first to bless it. Been doing this for 10 years. I haven't seen it yet. And then the last thing that you do is why you. Right. And you got to tell your own story. What I find is that I have multiple people that get other opinions. They always come back to me because, right, whatever that is for you is that, I don't have work business barriers. You have my cell phone number. You can call me with any questions at any time. It doesn't matter if it's 7 o'clock at night. Again, create your own barriers for what you're willing to do. But once I do this work, I'm now your chimney guy. I own your chimney. I own your problems. I want to come out here every year and see you happy. I want to make sure, whatever it is, that's your why. And if you'll go through that kind of list of letting them know it's unregulated, letting them know that if someone comes out that there are volunteer certifications, that lets them know at a minimum they've been tested to codes and standards, letting them know that someone probably will do it cheaper, but it's not going to be dramatically cheaper, letting them know that this is not opinion, this is fact. No one's going to come in and tell you something dramatically different. And then if it is different, give me a chance to review it, and then why people choose me. So if you'll kind of go through through those. I would say, I'd be making up this percentage, but half the time, they're like, no, that makes sense, man. I mean, let's go ahead and get this done. The other time it's like, okay, that's great advice. I'll let you know. And then you always set that follow-up call with how long do you need to get this, get these other people in here. If you're in busy season, they may have to wait 4 to 6 weeks to get another opinion, right? And then what's going to happen during that time, right? Time you book the work, now you got to wait another 2 months. So we're like 3 months out. Let's go ahead and take care of this for you, man. But if they're insistent on doing that, don't be afraid of it. Just say, great. How long is it going to take to get someone in here? And I'd like to at least have a conversation with you before you make a final decision. Is that fair? Great. I'll call you on this day.
Excellent. I do find if you at least have, Alan has the expert rebuttal, but I always had at least a rebuttal nice to them, always with that. And, I used to always just tell my story to make sure that you make the call back to me before you make the decision.
Yeah.
So, I may not be the cheapest, but I guarantee you I'm addressing the issues. And if anyone shows you anything less than the issues here, I would question what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Liners in Texas are huge. They don't do it. No one doesn't. So when I come up to a $5,000 liner job, I'm always 5,000 more than everybody because no one quotes liners.
No, absolutely.
And so it's like, I already know I'm 5,000 more than everyone else.
Yeah.
And so anyway. All right, Alan. Well, no, I appreciate it. And it's your time. And I don't want you to feel you have to stay longer than what you had to.
Yeah, no, I've got a meeting I got to head out to, but yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. And then, if anybody has any questions, you can always reach me usually on Facebook or my website or whatever the case may be and kind of go from there. And
tell them about your weekly thing.
Oh yeah. So if you're not signed, I don't know if any of you guys are signed up, but it's called let's see if I can get it right. The Rush Profits Monday Morning Meeting Minutes. So basically every week I send out a sales video. It's one of these topics. We probably just covered like 5 sales videos in today's session, but it's a little recorded 5 to 10 minute topic, language, just ways to help your guys sell more. It's really, really cheap. It's like $79 a month. You get a video every week. So like whatever that is, $15, $20 a video. And you can basically sign up at my website, which is rushprofits.com/sales videos. And just basically check it out. It's a good thing for your morning meetings. You just basically pay one price and it's for your whole team, no matter how many people you have. So there's no doubt if they watch the videos, hopefully if you thought this was helpful, it's basically recorded versions of that. It's a no-brainer to help your guys sell more. So
Master Services was the first week subscribed. So we've been subscribed ever since.
Awesome.
Okay, Alan, thank
you
you
very much for your time.
Yeah, appreciate y'all.
All right.
See ya.
Okay, everybody, good time to really quickly take a break. Let's just take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back. And I didn't really have a whole lot planned. Because I had a feeling we'd have enough content to continue on with what Alan talked about. And so let's all reconvene at 9 or whatever, at 10 after the hour, whatever time zone you're in. Okay. See you in 10 minutes.